Welcome back to Wrist Check Podcast, episode 47.
Yes.
Woo! We had a special guest with us this evening. But before we get into that, allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Perry.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Rashawn.
And we make up the Wrist Check Podcast. Tonight, we have the Margella god herself.
Yes.
Kathleen
McGivney.
That's right. Say my name.
Say it right.
See?
Say my name. Say my name. Glad you could make it. This has been some time in the making.
It has been.
It has. We're going to have some fun this evening. I know we'll have an opportunity to give our audience a chance to get to know you a little bit better and not only what you've been up to over the last year, but what you've been up to in the watch industry in general. And I heard you got a surprise for us tonight. So
I do.
I can't wait to talk about that. But before we get into that and tonight's festivities, we have to have our honorary wrist check.
Yes.
The man who never repeats a watch.
Is repeating the
Is
watch.
repeating the watch again.
I am repeating the watch again.
One of my favorites, though.
We need to keep a tally. Someone needs to keep a tally on how many times you repeat a watch.
Well, the funniest thing is this. If I repeat a watch, it's usually intentional.
Yeah, you always say that.
No, but
except the time it wasn't.
I think it was like one time. One time it wasn't intentional because I was traveling. But this was very intentional, and I think it. You know, when I wear watches, you know, there's always a method to my madness, and I feel like I decided to wear the Rolex Cellini again on the show for our viewers and listeners because of our guests. You know, Kathleen, I believe you have probably the greatest watch collecting group that we know of or can document, or like, you know, anyone can attest to and say, like, being a part of such an amazing club of Redbar. Rolex was the reason why I started collecting watches. Started from my father, and I've shared it before. Before I even knew what a Rolex was, I knew it was something special. Something about it. And just the idea of my father when he came home and he put it down from working hard, or when he picked it up to clock in at work, it was something about it that was just magical.
What Cellini reference are you wearing?
This is the Danos.
Okay.
So this is from the early 2000s, two-tone precious metal.
You see his
That smile gets bigger. Every time he says two-tone precious metal.
Yes. If I can collect all Rolex watches, right?
Here we go again. Here we go with this shit again.
I was with Tyler last night, so this is going to get interesting.
No, I would love to exclusively collect precious metal Rolexes.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
If I could.
Okay. You got some strap action happening.
I've got some strap action. Oh, as a matter of fact, I haven't repeated this watch wearing the John Rousseau strap.
Yes, you have.
I don't know if he did.
No,
I think he wore.
No, I wore the black.
The original strap, which was too small.
I wore the buffalo
black
right,
strap.
and then you wore on that strap.
No, I think I wore the black patent. I think I wore the black patent from.
I don't know.
This might be a first for the strap. I think so.
Yes, but custom John Rousseau strap. Shout out to them because they were very accommodating and like willing to work with me in the process.
Pink lizard. When I first, it's good.
When I first got the strap, I'm not gonna lie. I think I might have sent it to you, and I was like, I don't know if I like this.
That? No, that's not.
No, but that was the thing. I sent it to Perry first because if you didn't like it, I was gonna be crushed. I didn't like it.
John, so you have to take back your custom strap.
I was like, no way. And then you were like, no, this is hot. Yes. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna own the look.
It doesn't even look pink. It looks burgundy. It looks like the strap that I got you for the Breitling.
Yes.
For the Colt.
Yes. But I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna rock out.
It's a really good contrast.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Ben, what do you got on tonight?
I'm rocking John Special 2.0.
Woo! So you never give it back?
No, he didn't give it back. What he doesn't know is that I too went to Jean Rousseau and I had a strap made, but it's a prank.
Okay.
So I'll make him post it when I give it back to him.
Nice. I can't wait.
I'm gonna leave that as a surprise. It's gonna be funny.
What model is that? What reference?
5738R.
5738R. Nice.
It's good. I've only taken the watch off, and this is going to be a confession. Last episode I had on the Hamilton khaki. I wore this all day and then put a khaki on for the episode. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to take it off.
I mean, I wouldn't want to take that off either.
It's
nice.
The hard to take off.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's good. I'm repeating a watch. White gold date. Still getting plenty of wrist time. This is the reference 18239, so it's got the quick set date feature. This is early 90s. No reason to take it off. I'm enjoying it. It's nice. I know what day it is. I know what the date is. So as long as I
you
wear
know
it.
all of the information.
That's it.
You need.
Time. What else do you need?
And it's solid gold.
Solid white gold.
Yes.
Goes under the radar. Most people think it's steel.
Yes.
Slides under the wrist. It's fine.
Well, if you know that bracelet is not steel.
If you know, you know. Thankfully, a lot of people don't know, so I get to walk around New York City safe and sound.
There you go.
Kathleen, what do you got on the wrist tonight?
So I have on a Maurice Lacroix retrograde calendar.
Ooh.
It is two-tone. It is not two-tone precious metal, though. I'm sorry. It's steel and gold. So I am sorry. It is not all precious metal. But it is a... So Ben told me, like, bring stuff that has a story. And I was like, all right, we're going to get weird. So
Okay, let's get weird.
So, this is a piece... Like, Maurice Lacroix does not have this in their current repertoire at all. I got this... I don't know, like 8 or 9 years ago, and it was already older in their catalog. It's a complication that you don't see that much. It's a retrograde calendar, so when it hits the end of the month, it
Flies
back. It's just a cool piece.
Does it account for leap years?
That is a good question. I don't know.
So like February doesn't.
I think
I
that's
think it
just an
does.
annual calendar.
I don't think it does. It's just an annual calendar. But no, it's not like a perpetual. It's not the
Got it.
So it's not as complicated as that. It's also manual wind. It's like
Love manual watch.
I mean, all but one of those.
This is the second one we've had in the show now.
Really?
Fremstar had the first one.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, you're in good company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it's a cool piece, and it's just like it kind of hangs out in my safe, and then every once in a while I'll be like, ooh.
I love how the emblem is like affixed to the to the strap. That's kind of neat too.
Yeah, it's a very cool piece, and I think they've kind of evolved their collection to be fairly sporty. So this is a dress piece and a complication and stuff, and like it's just kind of something that I don't see a lot from them anymore.
Right.
And so I really kind of appreciate having it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Kathleen.
Yes.
Margiela God.
Yeah.
You're well known throughout the industry. Well known in New York City. Most people know you as the founder of Redbar Group. And you guys have grown tremendously. Now I think we can say there's chapters all over the world.
Everywhere, every continent except Antarctica. So
Antarctica.
And we just need the one guy at the science station, like one dude.
It's just so cold.
Like seriously, if there's anyone on here that is at
His
the science
watches
station
won't work in Antarctica.
in Antarctica.
He's at Alaska Project.
They have an Alaska project. Like, why does he one
it's
dude?
that one dude with the Alaska
Like,
Project.
walk
Like, I've been
outside.
waiting.
Yeah. So
It's Red Bar colors too.
Yeah.
Got that red
Right?
bezel.
I know that's why I got that. That's why I picked out that Moonswatch because it's inspired by the Alaska project.
Same.
Yeah.
So
All three of us got it.
yeah, that was the whole reason I wanted that one in the first place. But yeah, we've expanded. So I'm not technically the founder because it's Adam Craniotis. He was the founder.
Shout out to Adam.
Shout out to Adam.
We know how much he loves his Invictus.
He loves. Everybody should send at Craniotis on Instagram. Just tag him in as many Invicta pictures as you can. Just do it. Just tag him in Invicta pictures all the time, especially if Shaq is in them. Anyway,
I tagged him and Shaq.
because he
God.
loves it. I'm just saying. He does not love it. But so he founded it like back in 2007.
Right.
I have known him for a very long time. Like we have been friends for 24 years, which is
wow.
aging both of us. But he's much older. No, but he founded it, and it was like a really, really small group of people for a long time. Instagram came out.
What year was Redbar founded?
2007.
Okay.
And then whenever Instagram came, Instagram came out and like people started posting watches. All the Redbar meetups started he started posting watches, established the Redbar crew handle, and then people started like, as you know, the adoption of Instagram, the watch community was like,
all
that
about it.
I am into that because it's a visual medium. You can show pictures of your watches. And so people started seeing Redbar on Instagram and going, I want to do that in my city.
Yeah.
So it started growing really slowly at first. You know, there was like a lot of, the forums were very active. People would meet each other on the forums, but it was still very informal.
Where are you from originally?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. And so how did you get involved with Redbar?
So because I've known Adam for ever, we worked together. That's how we met each other. We worked together years and years ago. I stayed in touch with him over the years. As I saw, like we stayed in touch on social media as well as just like occasionally hanging out. And I saw all these photos. And then that's his early days of Instagram.
It was just a photo, no captions.
All the pictures were bad.
Yeah.
All the pictures were bad.
Photos taken on the potato.
Yeah.
Because it's like, because you're like in a dark bar in a basement.
Yeah.
With like pinpoint.
Somebody's getting a phone call.
Somebody's getting
Somebody's getting a phone call.
Get off the show.
Right.
There's always a first owner's checkpoint.
I mean,
47 episodes in. It's the first time a phone's rung. It's not bad.
Technically, it's the second time. The first time you didn't hear it, though.
Okay.
Episode 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No.
Good.
But
so like we had stayed in touch on social media. We were on Instagram and I kept seeing these dark pictures. So dark bar, LED pinpoint lighting overhead.
Yeah.
Because that bar was made for people hooking up on weekends. It was not made for watch
Right.
photos, right? So I was like seeing all these pictures and there's all these like tiny LED reflections and shit. Like it was terrible. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, come on out. I was like, I want to come check out these watches. He's like, come on out. And I'm like, I don't have like a crazy collection. You know, I had like a couple nice watches. I had like a Tag and a Movado, like, you know, whatever.
So you were already buying watches at that time?
I had a few. Yeah, I had a few. And then I also had a big Swatch collection.
Oh, wow.
So this was the deal. So my spouse at the time and I shared a Swatch collection. And he's like, you guys should come out. And I'm like, he's like, there's no snobs. It's cool. Like, you don't have to have like crazy nice watches. I was like, okay. So I tested that theory. And I brought our whole Swatch collection.
Wow. How many pieces we talking?
30.
Okay.
At the time.
At the time.
Right. At the time.
Now,
Keyword.
Now this is 2007.
That was about 2013. So
this is 2013.
Redbar had been around for 6 years at this time.
Got it.
But it was very inconsistent and it had just started meeting weekly, like not that long before. So so we showed up, 30 swatches.
30 swatches is a big deal still in 2013.
Threw them on the table. And people were like taking off their Pateks and their Rolexes and shit and trying them on, and they were like all excited. People were like, I remember this one from when I was a kid. Like, it was great.
That's awesome.
It passed the no snobs test, and I was like, okay, so this is cool. So we came back, and we kept coming back. And the thing that I loved about it and what sucked me in completely was the fact that I can walk in there with any watch, and I can go see that there's a watch on the table that I'm interested in, and I can pick it up and I can find out whose it is, and they will tell me about it because everyone in that room is in there because they love watches and they want to share their knowledge with you. They want to tell you about why that watch is special to them. They want to tell you what's cool about it. They want to show you all the like bells and whistles and all those stuff, you know? So I started learning stuff in an environment where, like in a store, look, you go into a watch, even me, like I'll walk into a watch boutique. If I don't know someone that works there, I'm like, it's intimidating.
It can be, absolutely.
It can be intimidating. So, and then if you go in there and you're in there to learn or you're in there to get knowledge, you feel bad for wasting someone's time. And like, you know, so in this environment, it's just all people who are there to hang out and drink. Like, bar is half the name.
For sure.
And, you know, all of the people that are in that room are in there to share their knowledge and passion. So you get to learn about stuff or just talk about your own watches in a no pressure environment. Yeah. And it is fantastic. It's also very dangerous to your wallet.
Sure, yeah. A room full of enablers.
A room full of enablers. It's like 100% it should be called enablement bar because it's like legit. Like, that's the whole thing too, is you're like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to start like doing my research and whatever. And then if you're like, oh, I'm thinking about buying this, everybody in there is going to be like, yeah, you should do that.
A room full of people that encourage you to blow your life savings on the watch.
100%.
You had a question?
No, well, one thing I wanted to share, and me and Ben, we were talking to Josh Shanks. Shout out to Shanks. Something that you brought up that was very interesting, talking about just like the time in watches, talking about 2007. You know, there wasn't really a hub for watch collectors or new people learning about watches unless they went to the forums.
Yeah.
And then remember when we were talking to Frem and we were talking about, I remember dial-up, you know, and all those kind of things, and the intro to the internet and connecting people and the guests that we've had on the show that talked about how they've gotten to the spaces that they've gotten to through the internet. But the biggest point of like when we were talking to Josh, he was like, hey, like, you know, I learned from the forums, and then I was an early member to Redbar.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then to that, it brought him to kind of editing and then going into marketing and those kind of things. So any kind of OG watch collector, 9 times out of 10, and why I gave you your flowers in the beginning is like any OG collector, they pass through Redbar. They
do pass it, and that's true. I mean, I remember when Josh joined Redbar, we were at a I met him at a dinner that was organized by TikTok.
What?
There's a guy on Instagram. His Instagram handle is TikTok, and he's like OG watch Instagram guy, and he organized this collector dinner, and I went to it and met Josh there, and he was like, "Oh, I'd love to come to Redbar," and I was like, "All right."
It was that easy then.
Well, you know, we like all sat, and it was like we were at one end of the table. It was like James Lambden and stuff from Analog Shit. You know, like,
of course.
Right, so it's like all of us at the one corner, like of the, this table, and we're all like sitting there, like putting our watches on the table, and like talking to each other and stuff. And that was, I think, that was around 2014 when I met him. So, you know, I had started like helping organize it at that point. Like I showed up, and then Adam was like, "What?" To be fair to Adam, when we met and were working together, I was the project manager at the company that we worked at, right? And he was like, "Oh, you're really good at that." I am good at organizing shit.
Yes.
So he is great at people stuff. He can rattle off reference numbers all day long, but like the minutia of organizing things is not like his favorite. Like he could do it, but he doesn't love it. And I'm like, dude, give me a spreadsheet. I'm like here for it. So we kind of started, you know, we started kind of dividing our responsibilities and doing that. And so Josh was like, I want to join. I'm like, all right, there you go. Like you're cool. You
nothing stopping
watch
you,
on the table. Like come on over.
I think the cool thing about this whole period too is just like thinking back to like 2013, 2012, and utilizing Instagram the way that you guys did in those early days to like get people out. I kind of like super interested in just like what these photos look like, because I remember that time too.
Real bad.
There was watch photography wasn't a thing yet.
Nope.
And on Instagram, if you were Instagramming, you were all about your filters.
Facts.
It was hipstamatic.
It was
hipstamatic.
It was
the frames.
Yeah.
No.
Everyone's trying to get artsy with it and actually take like really terrible photos.
Yes.
No, it was so the photo, like most of the photos that were on the Redbar account, and you could go all the way back to
they're all there.
Beginning, and they're all there.
Wow.
And they're all grainy and old.
That would make an amazing coffee table book.
It would. I should. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
There you go.
I might do that. Yeah, no, it's right, because people were taking pictures with their phones mostly, and early. This is, you know, iPhones had been out for a long time, but they were not good at low light.
No, not at all.
At that point, so like, we're in a dark bar again, and everybody's, you know, people are half in the bag, so they're like, so you know, none of the photos turned out well. There were people that were like actually taking real photos with their cameras, and then they'd like have to plug it into their laptop and edit it, and then get it onto their phone somehow to put it on Instagram. Like it was a whole process. So back then it wasn't as easy as having these phones that have been now, like, you know, the cameras are better, they do better in low light, you can do all this, you can do a lot more stuff. So what was interesting about that is basically the forums, people like were on the forums And I remember that stuff. You go on the forums and you'd be like, I'm gonna load this page. It's got photos. And then you'd be like, I'm gonna go make a sandwich.
Yeah,
I'm gonna come back. And it's going to be half loaded because the photos are still loaded, right? But there was a community that grew out of that, right? And but that was an online community, and then Instagram kind of kickstarted in that space.
Yeah.
And then people started being like, but I see you meeting in real life, so I want to take this back offline.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is there was not really anything at that time, 2007, 2013 even, there was not really any community, like real, like cohesive community. There were small groups here and there. There were some groups that had like entry requirements and like you have to have a minimum collection of X dollars and stuff. I'm not gonna name them.
Yeah,
but you should.
Yeah,
you got beef.
I'm not as well. No, but like there were some things like that where, you know, and I will say this. On some level, I kind of understand, because when we get like cold emailed from a stranger,
right?
We vet them. We need to know your real name and like your background and like why you're into collecting and like what brought you to collecting. Not because we want them to give us something about their minimum. Like, I don't care if you have a swatch or a FP. I'm trying to keep people safe.
Yeah.
I need to know who you really are.
Yes.
Like, not just some Instagram handle or whatever. I need to know your actual identity and like what brought you there. I also don't want people to roll into Redbar, and this has always been the case. We don't, again, we there's no barrier to entry other than, do you like watches?
Yes.
That is it.
Yeah.
However, I do not want some dude rolling up in there and being like, I got the biggest, goldest Rolex. Look at me. Because if you're in there for the ego stroke, you're not going to get it. There's always going to be someone in there that knows more about watches than you.
Yep.
You know, like whatever. And none of that matters because we're in it for the passion. So if you're in it for that, you're going to self-select out.
That was always one of my favorite things about attending watch meets like Redbar, was that I always found that when you attended these events and you met with people who were passionate collectors, everyone would kind of fawn over the things that were like the most obscure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
like whatever was in the room that no one knew anything about, everyone wanted to know about. It didn't matter what it cost. It didn't matter what it was made of. It was just like, what the hell is that? And who are you?
Right. They're like, that's weird. I want to know more.
Exactly.
Right. And like that's the thing I love about those kind of, that's what drew me into them. That's what got me into it. And that's what made me want to help organize and grow it.
Right.
Because it resonated with me. And that like, it's a mentality that I've always been familiar with, collecting stuff. Right. I was a comic book collector when I was a teenager.
Oh, wow.
I was like, you know, like, so it's the same mentality. You're passionate about a thing, you collect the thing, and all you want to do is talk about the thing with other people. So what started with you personally, like collecting watches? Did it start with Swatch? I like many people who grew up in the 80s had swatches. Okay. Lots of them. And you know, I probably broke a bunch. Sure. You know.
Do you still have any broken ones?
I do. I have a couple that broke because especially the ones from like the 80s, 90s with that have like any that are not opaque plastic, the ones that have the like sheer, the clearer or sheer plastic, those ones get brittle.
Yeah.
So I have a couple. They're like the watch still works, but
yeah, Rashawn, you got like two of them now, don't you?
Straps,
like that?
the straps get real brittle.
They're the first things to go.
I have a Denton View that I hasn't even seen the light of day because I can't wear it.
Yeah, so I have like one of my favorite ones, which is one of the Halloween ones. Like it just, I picked it up one day and it just went, yeah. And I was like, oh,
it evaporated.
Which is funny because that one has a mystery dial. Like it like literally the like one of the watches I brought today has the second hand is a ghost that goes around the dial and floats around the dial, but I can't wear it because the strap has completely just deteriorated.
The cool thing with Swatch though too, it's like it's in some ways it's like the ultimate collectible because they're so distinct that you can their watch is very easy to date.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, you know, when this one came out, you know, this collab, it's like you don't really have to memorize reference numbers.
Never.
No.
You know the piece. It has whatever significance to you personally, or maybe something related to what was happening at the time.
Yeah, or
and
cool.
you buy it.
Yeah.
And it's just something about it that's just really cool. Like even like we had Kelly on, and she's made a habit of getting a swatch from every city she visits.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No, I love it for that reason.
Yeah, so I had swatches when I was a kid, and then when I was like, I did the thing that everybody does. I got my first good job.
Yeah.
So I got myself
First
a Tag
good.
Heuer.
There we go.
You know.
Which one? Do you remember?
I don't. This was in the 90s, and it was one of those ones. They did a really good job with, and we can get into the topic of gendering watches in a little bit, but
Okay.
let me just, because I have opinions with a capital O. But in the 90s, Tag did a really good job of making ladies' watches that weren't like the way that a lot of brands make ladies' watches, which was not pink.
Right.
It was not, it wasn't dumbed down,
Yeah.
right? They just made smaller watches that were
Yeah.
cool with like integrated bracelets and stuff. I don't remember the name or the reference number because I don't speak reference numbers
Sure.
of the watch, but I still have it
Yeah.
somewhere. But it was cool. It was good. It had an integrated bracelet. It was really, really just a nice watch. And then I got like, a Movado museum piece.
Yeah.
'Cause
Classic.
classic.
Yeah.
Like the all black one.
Yep. I know.
Yeah, it's super sweet. And so I had a few nice ones, but they weren't, both of those were quartz. I just, because I didn't really know better at the time. I was just like, I have a good job.
Yeah, there we go.
I have a good job in an office. I'm going to buy this nice watch. And I really didn't get fully into like the depth of like mechanical stuff until I started going to Redbar. And then I went real deep down the rabbit hole, like real fast.
Oh yeah.
Like real fast. It was not cute. I was like, I'd be like, spending all my free time looking stuff up and doing research and stuff. It was I got real obsessive in the beginning because that's the way I get into stuff. If I like something,
you just dive in.
I want to know everything about it.
You were gonna say something? I'm sorry.
Because I wanted to dive into your swatch collection.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but I wanted to kind of touch on the swatch here.
Yeah.
And
Perry's pick for watch of the year.
Perry's pick. That should be
that's not going to be the name of that episode.
Not going to be the name of that
That's not going to be the name of the episode.
We can come back around and figure out. We're going to use that
I gotta
title.
make a little sticker for that and like put that on posts and stuff on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like make a whole Giphy thing for that.
Perry's pick. That
think
phase too when you do that a lot too.
I think this is a good idea. It's something that we can do with our friends over at Bezel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I kind of wanted to jump the gun, if I am,
Please do.
and talk about the Swatch, very similar to Rolex, it is a watch that like you can easily fall in love with, and at this price point you can collect. Kind of diving back into the idea of how Redbar was started, and people putting watches on the table. I noticed that that's kind of a bit of like the Redbar kind of like trademark, like you just take your timepieces off and just you put them on the table and it's safe, and like no watches are going missing. Everybody like geeks out and everybody like loves the watches. Like, was that something that was originally like initiated, or was it something that was just created?
It just sort of happened organically, right? So like the core early group of folks that were meeting up, it was in New York especially, it was a pretty small group. It was like friends of friends, and like it was very organic, and people just started doing that.
Yeah.
And then so I will tell you, there is a term for that when we take the big pile, the picture of like all the watches on the table. It is called a sex pile, and the reason it is called a sex pile. I coined that.
Ben likes that.
I coined that term.
Tons.
And I will tell you this because I was standing there one time and everybody had put their watches on the table, and this was pretty early on. It was like, I want to say it was like early 2014 maybe, but I'd have to go back and look at the origin of the hashtag. But we were standing in a Redbar.
I don't think you want to look up the origin of the hashtag sex pile.
Trust me. There were articles written about it that were like derogatory. I'm looking at you, Esquire. There were people that were like, oh yeah, if you see the term sex pile, it's just all these jerks showing off how rich they are because they have watches on a table. And I was like, that is not what it's about.
And it's like 50 swatches.
Yeah. But like what it was is we were all there. It was the normal, like every time we would meet up, everybody would, you know, the watches would already be on the table like this on a watch roll or whatever, separated. And then we would put them all together and take one picture.
Yeah.
And I looked over one day and we were doing that end of the night. And I was like, that is one big pile of sex. That is a sex pile. I said that to Adam Craniotis and he was like,
his eyes lit up.
I'm putting that on as a hashtag. And that's the origin of that hashtag. It was literally just me looking at that and I was like, damn. Like basically.
Because that's the name of the coffee table book.
Right. Sex pile.
Hashtag sex pile.
Hashtag sex pile.
Redbar gonna have to cut a consultant check or something after that.
I am going to write a treatment and a sample chapter tonight. No, seriously, like that. No, we should.
Forward by Perry Dash.
We should, forward by Perry Dash. Great. We should do that because there's this whole history of it. And now it's gone. You know, like people do it at other chapters. Yep. It's like it's a whole thing, and the whole thing of that though, it goes back to the sort of casual nature of our meetups. Like we're not there to line things up all neatly or put them in vitrines. We're there to like hang out and talk about watches and share our passion and like, you know, but the funny part is the first time we did this whole thing in 2015. We did a Redbar tour. Me and Adam Craniotis and my ex-husband traveled to Europe and we went to a few different chapters. And we went to meet with the Belgium Watch Club, which is like kind of an affiliate. And they did a sex pile, but they lined all their watches up very neatly. And I was like, this is the most organized sex pile I've ever seen. It's so neat. Like everything was like perpendicular. And I was like, okay, that's different than what we usually do. And they're like,
those damn Europeans.
They just didn't want to have the metal, you know, they didn't want any
scratches.
They want any scratches. And we're just like, I'm like, oh, we're in New York. We're already like 3 drinks deep. Like,
sure,
you know, like, but yeah, that was the origin of it. And it was like, but again, it's because it's casual and like people are just hanging out and talking. It's like, you know, it's just a chill thing. And so that became an extension of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going back to Swatch.
Yes.
So in your collection here, you brought some watches for us.
I did.
And Rashawn did point out the Moon Swatch.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. This is a pretty premium swatch.
It is.
Retails for $260.
Yeah.
Like it's not cheap. We know that when they first dropped, it was impossible to get.
Bedlam. It was.
People were still lining up for this.
People were lining up. Someone got stabbed. There's a video
my
favorite video of all this is like people trying to disperse the crowds, but there was like one outside of the Swatch store. I think in the West Village or whatever. There was like typical New York cop on a bullhorn. Yeah. It's like, there's no more watches.
Yeah.
Like,
nice.
Yeah.
You know, like in the like full, you know, because people were just.
They didn't get it.
No, but it was because it's the hype, you know, like people were lining up because they were going to flip them. And then real watch collectors, I was like, I'm not.
Rashawn almost bought one.
I was like,
from like a 16-year-old.
I tried to buy one.
Kid was like, yo, I need a rack.
Yeah. I was like, yo, man, I got $600. He was like, I want 1,000. I was like, how about I give you a wedgie? He was that young. I was like,
I mean,
future businessman.
Yes.
What was your initial response when you first saw this?
When I first saw them, I thought they were pretty cool. I was like, that's an interesting thing to do. Like, I think it's really interesting, especially to call back to like some interesting Speedmasters.
Yep.
Especially this one. This is why I always wanted this one. The Mission to Mars is my favorite one because I've always loved the Alaska Project. There's like one dude that was like a fairly early Redbar New York member that had one. Every time he would bring it, I was like, because it's just such a cool piece and the story behind it is cool. So that one was my favorite, but like I really love them. I think that the release was both brilliant and despicable.
Sure, that's a great way of looking at it.
They did a really good job of attaching themselves to kind of a hype machine, kind of, you know, of the internet, and that made the whole release chaotic.
It did,
and I think it didn't need to be that chaotic. That said, my buddy, so Ben asked me to have watches with stories. So I have stories.
Sure.
So my buddy was like in the Oculus, like
makes
like
4 of us
at the end of sometime in December, and he texted me and was like, "Hey, I'm outside this watch store. Do you think the Moon swatches are cool?" Because this is one of my friends that's like, like we all are the watch person in our broader social circles, right?
Of course.
So he's like, "Do you think those are cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I want one." And he's like, "Oh, that's all you need to say?" He's like, "I'm gonna go inside and see if they have any." So he goes in the store, and he said, "If there is one, is there one you want?" And I said, "Mission to Mars." So he walks in the store. They had one left in the whole store, and it was a Mission to Mars. And he's like, "I'm buying that. I'm gonna get it for you." Like,
that's awesome.
And I, I paid him back and whatever, but that was the only one in the store, and I was like, I am not only going to pay you back for that watch immediately and come pick it up from you, but I am also buying a lottery ticket because what? Like the fact that like my friend is randomly in front of a watch store, walks in, the only one they have left at all is the one that I want. Like
that's awesome.
That's pretty dope.
What did you think of the strap?
I don't love it. It's uncomfortable. I think it's not terribly uncomfortable. It just doesn't sit on my wrist right. So my wrist is small. It kind of overhangs unless I pull it too tight. Pull it tighter. So I see there's somebody that's making aftermarket straps for them that look really great. But
Horace, I think, was making something.
I saw somebody sent me a link, and I was like, "Those look really nice, but they're like a couple $100."
Yeah, and Ricardo has one. I think.
Yeah, but they like cost almost as much as the watch.
Erica's Originals has a good strap, but I said I bought 2 of them, and they ended up refunding me because they never sent them. So I don't know if I could pump that anymore.
I have this thing with like collectibles that I have to keep it as is, and so I could never take the strap off of this.
Mine is dirty as hell.
Yeah, I just have to like.
My Moonswatch strap is dirty.
A weird thing with me.
See, I think what I would do is get like the red aftermarket strap, wear it with that, and then put this back on when I'm like storing it.
They should just make replacement straps for that.
They should.
You never know. Coming soon.
Maybe.
Who knows? Who knows?
But I thought this was such a really great release. So much so that I nominated them for Watch of the Year.
I love it.
Just because I can't think of another timepiece that had people go as crazy as this. I don't even think Rolex achieved that last year. No. This was insane. I'd never seen anything like it.
Every single person that I know that's in like that's not part of my watch community, like my other friends that know I'm into watches, which is kind of obvious at this point, but my other friends are like, they'd be like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" Because everyone has heard about this,
right?
Like everyone has heard about the hype and the lines and all of that stuff.
So, going back to Redbar and sort of the start. So, Adam founds Redbar.
Yep.
You come along, help him get organized. At what point did you all realize, okay, we know people are interested everywhere. Like, this is something that we're going to not only push, but we can like plant a flag and like open chapters. Yeah,
so we already had some chapters by the time that I joined.
What did that process look like? Like, what was it like to say, like, okay, we're going to open a chapter?
At the beginning, it wasn't a process. It was sort of Adam Cranios going, yeah, you can do that. And it was literally like, it was like some guy he knew in Chicago or whatever.
Sure.
Like it was, so there were a few chapters around. It was like either people he had met through the forums or whatever that were like, I want to do this. It was very grassroots and very...
That's awesome.
Chill. I was like, oh, we have to wrangle this because we need to make sure that like there's not just someone going, I'm Redbar South Dakota or whatever. And like so we start the reason that we started to put a formal process around it was just make sure that like no one was misusing the name and like, like I don't want somebody throwing our logo on some product that we didn't, we have nothing to do with. So we kind of developed a process where, there's a couple of ways that people can start chapters. One is if somebody knows somebody who's an existing member or an existing chapter head recommends someone. They're like, oh, my friend who is a Redbar member just moved to blah city and there's no chapter.
Yeah.
They'd like to start one. Cool. That's easy. It's already a vetted person. It's already a person who's a member. We get a lot of emails to the website that are like, there's no chapter where I live. I would love to start one. So we now the process is we have a Zoom conversation with them and like talk to them. Again, we're trying to get the right mentality. We don't want someone that's in there trying to sell people shit.
Yeah.
We don't want someone that's in there like trying to get like, I don't know, we just don't want people to do it for the wrong reasons. We want people to get in a room and be passionate collectors together and not try to be like, you know, like the ego stroke for having the fanciest watch or whatever. So we have a conversation with them and, you know, almost everyone that we've ever had come through is like, oh yeah, I love watches. I just literally want to sit in a room and talk to other people about it.
What's cool too is that like, so you've had, you know, like even mentioning Josh Shanks.
Yeah.
There have been people who have passed through Redbar that have gone on to develop careers within the industry.
Yeah, Josh was in technology when he joined Redbar, and now he's in the industry, works for us. Yeah. So, and he and his wife met through Redbar.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and Boris Bear was at their wedding, not because Josh works there now, because he wasn't at the time, but like that was a whole there's a whole thing around that. Redbar was involved in their like helping them plan their wedding.
Have any watchmakers we know pass through Redbar?
I mean, there's a few that are like kind of members and stuff, but yeah. I mean, the biggest example of like watch brands of people that are Redbar members is Brew, John Ferrer.
Ferrer, yeah, and you have a Brew here.
I have a Brew. He started as a Redbar member, so like his very first ever Brew watch, he did a Kickstarter. He was a Redbar member and just like was like, I'm doing a Kickstarter.
Oh, that's awesome! I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he decided to design his own watch and Redbar New York member, and you know, kind of showed it to everybody. But like that's one of the cool. I think one of the
he's a good dude
most
too.
Interesting stories. Yeah. So
what's funny is I've known of him for a while, and I hadn't had the opportunity to meet him. And then me and Ben went to it was a Phillips event, and I'm looking at some of the watches, and this guy comes up behind me. We just start talking about watches, and then we get into conversation like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I started like some little watch company. And then I'm like, what's the name of it? He's like, Brew. And I'm like, holy shit, I've been looking to meet you.
He's so funny because Adam and I always joke that he's like one of the nicest guys in the watch industry, which is true. We think that he's so nice that he either is like, he's just that nice, or he has a dungeon in his basement with like bodies in it or something. But like, he's just a really lovely guy, and he's super humble, and like, you know, he's just like, if there's anyone you want to see succeed at doing something like that, it's someone like that.
He just released a new watch today too.
He did just release a new watch today.
Yeah.
It is so cool.
You seen it in person already?
No, I hadn't seen it in person already. He showed me the prototype, or he showed me some photos before it came out.
We'll share an image on screen. Yeah. So how did this piece come into? I mean, obviously you have a relationship with him and the brand, but what's the story behind this piece?
So this piece is he came out, of course, so his whole design ethos came around from industrial coffee machines. So like the idea for the case design and stuff was inspired by the shapes of those. Originally, like now it's more about, you know, the idea is taking a break and having a coffee and like, you know, there's a whole larger kind of idea around it. This piece, because there's so much coffee themed stuff involved in his watches, this piece is one where he decided, so he has another version of this watch, an earlier version that has an espresso timer. So there's like a little track, there's a little thing on there it's exactly how long you should pull an espresso shot.
No way.
This one has 4 different methods of timing different coffee on the back. So it's pour over, espresso, and a couple of other methods.
It's a whole new reason to use a chronograph.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So there's amazing. So it's a chronograph that you can literally time 4 different ways of making coffee on one dial. And I was like, first of all, of course you. Like, if anyone was gonna make this watch,
he named his watch company Brew.
I know.
But if anyone was gonna make a watch that has coffee timing for 4 different kinds of coffee, it has to be him.
Sure.
And then secondly, this dial color
looks so
is so amazing. And when he came out with it, he showed me this one, and then there's a dark blue version of it as well. But this yellow, it's like so saturated and happy, and like
it's nice.
It's just a really good color. So I love the idea that it had the timing on the dial, and then I was just like, I just like looking at it. It makes me happy to look at it.
I love like the K shape, and then like his use of lines on the dial. Like it's always, a lot of the stuff is like really retro.
Yeah,
and it seems like late 80s, early 90s kind of vibe.
Totally.
The biggest thing too is like the play on actually purposing your watches.
Mm-hmm.
You know, currently, I think people kind of misuse watches. What bothers me the most is someone using a watch as an investment, or saying that is an investment. Which, you know, of course, like the masses do create this, but going back to like the purity of watches and why they exist and what they are for, they're tools.
Yeah,
nothing else. They're not to be weapons. They're not to be weaponized. They're not to be monopolized or capitalized on. So I love this like play on the essence of time.
And well, it's so cool too, because you know, if you're someone who loves complications, I happen to love chronographs. You always kind of look for an excuse to use the complication.
Totally.
Yes.
Right. And here's someone who is like giving you, in some ways, a whole new hobby. You know, you might be someone who enjoys coffee, but maybe you've never made a pour over. You know, you don't really know how to use. You know, you're not a barista, right? But then this is like this gives a person a whole new excuse to jump into another hobby and spend the remaining of their life savings, right? So that's really cool.
Yeah, no, that I love that too. And to touch on what you said, he does do well a couple of things that both of you said. I love that he incorporates that kind of like actual, like it's an actual tool watch for a specific purpose.
Yes.
Like it's a chronograph. I use my chronographs to time like web meetings and stuff. Like I'm at work and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, okay, y'all have 5 minutes.
That's it.
And but the other thing is the retro aspect of it. He came out with a version of this watch, an earlier version of this watch that's like 8-bit. So like all of the elements on the dial, including the little coffee mug, are like 8-bit video games. And like it is not only pandering to everyone who grew up with that kind of video game, but like people I know who don't wear watches saw that on my wrist and were like, dude, I played video games like that when I was a kid, and bought it. Like literally people who didn't wear a watch on their wrist. Like, so
it's amazing how watches can do that to some people. For some, it's like, you know, you might get into the history, you might be a passionate collector, but there are those pieces that kind of remind me of like my childhood, almost like what Swatch does for someone, where you see it and you're like, you know, I might not be like a watch person per se, but like that really resonates with me and I need that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like you might not be into watches specifically, but there's some element of it that resonates with you. Yeah. So so I think that's what's very cool about this. And plus John is just like
he's a sweet guy.
He's a super nice guy.
He's a cool guy.
I say this, I've said this about him on multiple podcasts, so John, if you're listening. I said you were nice again. No,
he'll hear it. We were talking about being on the show, so we'll
you should have him on the show.
He's going to be fantastic.
I think he would be a great guest because you know he really thinks through these designs.
We actually live in the same neighborhood. We discovered too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's like not that far from me at all. So I noticed you have a Zodiac.
I do.
On the table.
I do.
And this is a piece that I love and adore. And I wanted to ask you how you feel about vintage.
I love vintage. So my collection in general is very eclectic.
Yeah.
So I have modern, I have vintage, I have a alarming amount of swatches, and also semi-less alarming amount of G-Shocks. So I have like a lot of plastic watches, and then I have like vintage stuff. I have like independence. I have all kinds of stuff. I like vintage a lot. You know, the only considerations that I really have is are they waterproof?
Yes.
So I'm not going to wear them in a rainstorm.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I love this one in particular because it's so funky. It's so weird.
It is.
It's great. And I love it. And the reason I like this one specifically, though, is the mystery dial.
Yeah.
And I have 2 mystery dial pieces. This one and a Le Coach, which is double signed Vacheron. It's very cool. But Ben had some requests.
Okay.
And he said mystery dial, so I picked one of them.
I said, bring a mystery dial.
He said, bring a mystery dial.
So she brought the gold one.
This is one of my. This is the coolest one. This is one of my favorite watches. I love how I guess we'll call it the seconds dot, just kind of like runs.
Yeah, it's
just like running its own race around the outer minute track.
It's so great, and this is a thing I love about mystery dials in particular is because they're kind of fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Especially if they were running seconds. So my other one doesn't have a running seconds. So this one's much more fascinating to actually watch it run. This one is awesome.
And what's funny to me is Zodiac is a brand that I really, really love, with an incredibly like rich history.
Absolutely.
And what's really cool with them is that, you know, for a brand with their history, they are in a position where they could be like, you know, a Blancpain or, you know, near Rolex adjacent if they wanted to take that route. But they still know how to have fun. They make really cool pieces. They make pieces that I think are still geared to people who want to experience a timepiece.
Absolutely. And it's stuff that like there's actually an article that just went up on our blog yesterday, I think. Time, I don't know what is time, but yesterday. So my buddy actually uses his dive watches for diving.
Yeah. And
so Zodiac loaned us the titanium. Titanium piece that they have. That thing glows like it's Chernobyl. It's like it's Lumed.
It glows in the daytime.
It glows in the daytime. It glows crazy. All of the time. Like I set it on my table in my living room, and like the window is across the room. And I like leave the room and I come in and I like stand over it, whatever, there's a shadow, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, so I lent it to my friend, and he took it on a dive trip and took photos of it underwater and glowed like crazy, whatever. Yeah. And this is a dude who owns Doxa Sub, Carbon. He's got a Seiko Patty, like he uses them when he dives, and he's in love with this Zodiac because it just gave him joy to use it. You know. Yeah,
Zodiac's an easy brand to fall in love with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bought the meteorite dial piece.
Oh yeah,
the GMT.
No,
I think this is GMT.
No, it was a dive watch. It's just a dive watch. Yeah, it was a
meteorite Seawolf.
Yeah, meteorite.
It was a Seawolf. Yeah.
I was like, I've always wanted a meteorite dial watch, and like the price point can't be beat. It was like under $2,000. Like, for a meteorite, like okay.
Sure. Just some moon rocks.
I like stuff from space. What are you gonna do?
So how did this piece get into your collection?
The Zodiac piece, I weirdly enough, I bought it from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was like looking around for.
We'll bleep that out.
Your facts.
You know, I bought it from an unnamed source.
Yeah.
No, I was looking around for one, and it was a good example.
It is.
It was in really good condition. It was perfect, and so I picked it up.
It's always funny too, getting a watch like that. Like anytime you get a watch that's like drives you to like experience it, it's really difficult to take it off your wrist.
Yeah.
As is with like a new watch in general. Like how long was that thing? Like the go-to watch?
I wore it solidly for like 2 weeks, like straight, and I have a pretty sizable collection, so
you try to rotate as much.
I try to rotate, but like that, and I'm like making an effort right now to like not.
Yeah, you're doing a different watch a day this month, right?
A different watch every day this month. That's not gonna last because I don't have 365 watches. Yeah. So like, but no, that one was on my wrist solidly for like 2 weeks when I first got it.
It's fire.
Yeah, it's really great, and I love that it's like gold and the case is just chunky and it's just like hi, I'm obnoxious with it. Exactly. And then you're like, ooh, look at the second time. Yeah. And then you're just mesmerized by it. It's like
fire.
Fidget spinner of
that's kind of a good way of looking at it.
What's up with this weird titanium one I asked you about earlier?
This
is the one that got my attention.
Yeah.
What is this?
I've never seen that before.
So,
I've never seen you wear it either.
I have worn it around.
Not around
you.
me.
Yeah, I have.
Name a time. Exactly.
So this is a watch made by a guy named Ian Schoen. So he is mostly known for making pens. So he has, and I'll send you guys all the details of all this.
Rashawn's gonna buy 10 of them. Don't do that.
What's up with the case?
So the case is what Ian calls crystallized titanium.
Wow.
So he uses a proprietary process. It looks like it's hammered, like like a hammered surface, but feel it, it's smooth.
It's crazy.
So the process that he uses to make that effect on the case actually strengthens the titanium, so it's already it actually makes,
it like forges it,
kind of like a Damascus.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's proprietary. He's like
this is crazy.
This dude is like, and I
look
say
at the seconds on it.
I know that. Okay, so the seconds. So I'm gonna get to that in a second. This dude is like a mad scientist in the best possible way. Like he's also like real upbeat. Like he's like a little like bouncy punk rock happy dude who's like, I need to figure out a way to reverse engineer the titanium on a airplane outer, like something like that on a thing. Yeah. He's like, that looks cool, and those people won't tell me how they made it, so I'm
gonna figure it out.
He was like an engineer at Area 51 or something.
Like,
Bob Lazar.
UFOs.
But this dude, so he just decided, he was like, he saw this on, I can't remember if it was an aircraft or something. But he reverse engineered how to make this
from a Blackbird.
Yeah. But you can see exactly what you're talking about, like how it looks hammered.
Yeah, it looks hammered.
I can see it from.
What's the dial? What's the dial?
So the dial is anodized titanium. So one of the things about titanium and niobium, which is not really used in watches, but both of those metals can be anodized to any color. So by the application of electromagnetic forces.
Electroplating,
basically, electroplating. So it's also the crystallized titanium, but he's anodized it to be a certain color. So he made like a handful of these, and I was like, this was a pandemic purchase actually. I had seen them. He was on a panel that we did at the 2019 Redbar Global Meetup here in New York, which was like all independent. So it was like Joshua Shapiro and John from Brew and Roland Murphy from RGM and Ian. And that's on our YouTube channel if you want to watch it. It's great. It's just like, independent, like people that figured out how to make their own shit. It's awesome. So he had brought that up and I saw it and I was like, cool. And then, like many of us, I engaged in some retail therapy.
Sure, yeah.
While I was locked in my home. And I messaged him and I had him do this other project. I had him do a custom pen project for me as well. And I was like, dog, I think I got to buy that. And he's like, okay. So
he made that watch specifically for you?
No, that watch was already made. He just hadn't sold it. And it was like one of those ones that's like super special to him.
Sure.
He only wanted to sell it to friends.
This is crazy.
So the movement in that, the movements he uses in his watches are new old stock Doxa movements. He says it's Doxa caliber 100, which I can't find a whole ton of information on. It's similar to the Cal 103, but the gears are in
reversed.
They're reversed. So, which is based off a Etta movement. So, Etta made those movements for Doxa for dress watches sometime in the 50s or 60s.
And then Doxa flipped the gears and said it's in-house.
And
hiked the prices up.
So anyway, so he found some of these movements and then he made some titanium watches with them. So the ones that he currently has on his site are that they don't have
all one of ones.
Not all of that. I think he actually.
This is small runs.
They might be. Yeah. They might be. This is a one of one.
Were they expensive? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. Yes. I honestly don't remember what the price was, but it was not inexpensive.
Was it over $5,000?
There we go.
Okay, so around 5,000.
Okay, I think.
So
for a one of a kind watch, that's not bad. Pretty good.
For sure. But the thing is, the cool thing about this is the seconds you can see. There's a little cutout. There's a little cutout in the dial, and so the running seconds kind of goes past it.
Yeah.
And so it's a very cool expression of a running seconds hand. So I love everything about this watch. I really like. Again, this comes back to the people for me. Sometimes I've bought a number of Brew watches. Not just because they're cool, but because John is awesome.
Yeah.
this watch is made by a person who I really like, who I think is a great person. He's like figuring out how to machine his own pen nibs and stuff now. So like, if you're into pens, maybe
This
don't.
man
I
is-
love
Yeah.
pens. I collect pens.
Maybe okay. So I'm sorry to your wallet.
Yeah.
Connect
When you go look at his site, he makes awesome stuff, and he's like manufacturing a lot of it in his own like workshop and stuff. But I just love this piece. I
Yeah.
just love it.
That's fire.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you a question.
Yeah, of
as
course.
far as because we've been talking as of late about design language and how less is becoming more. Obviously, this was a pandemic purchase, so this is kind of a bit when watches are kind of on this upward trajectory, but not so many people are exposed to them, or let's say like watch designers aren't really kind of biting off each other, let's just say. What's your play on design language? Like, because even the pieces here, like less is more for you. What is it about a specific timepiece that you're like, I gotta have it?
That's interesting because it's yes, with the ones I chose to bring today.
None of these are alike.
None of them are alike, and most of them are less is more. Although I would argue that the Zodiac is a little extra.
I mean,
No,
there's
it's
no
still
dial
very-
technically.
It's very minimal.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
extra maybe in the case
The
shape,
case,
Yeah,
but
yes.
the case is
when
like
you look
hello.
at the dial, everything is toned.
That's
It's
true.
just-
That's
yes,
true. That's
it's-
true.
Yeah.
This piece, though, that I have on my wrist, the Maurice Lacroix, which I have not passed around to you guys yet, that is
Yeah, this has a lot going
that
for
has a
it.
lot going on.
For sure.
So it really honestly varies. Like I said, my collection is very eclectic. It's all over the map,
Yeah.
and it's just honestly in some cases it's the movement, in some cases it's the finishing, sometimes it's the simplicity. I definitely do love a clean sort of aesthetic, but sometimes I'm just like, damn, that one was good, you know. Like, because I have, okay, so for going back to Swatch, I have one of the Swatch Trésor Magique, and I don't know if you've seen those. It's like a limited edition of 12,999 pieces. Come on.
Oh wow.
Made in 1993. It was like it's a platinum Swatch. It is a
Oh,
platinum
I've seen
Swatch.
this.
That dial is absolutely illegible. You cannot, like, unless you're like studying it,
Yeah.
you can't tell the time on that motherfucker.
No.
Like, it is not a practical watch in any way.
Still a platinum swatch.
But it's a platinum
That's a
swatch.
flex.
It's a platinum swatch.
It's a platinum swatch.
So like, I mean, like, so I
Talk
was
about
like,
precious metal.
that is crazy. I'm gonna
It
buy
is.
that. Right. So sometimes it's just like that. Sometimes it's something that I'm like, okay, this is weird
Yeah.
or whatever. So, and my collection
really
is
cool.
there's a lot of weird stuff in it.
Yeah.
Right. So even though the Ian Schoen watch is like, it's very kind of minimalist in its design language and its design aesthetic, it's also real weird.
Yeah.
Like there's no other crystalline titanium
No way.
cases out there.
No.
No.
Yeah.
So like part of the appeal of that to me is that it's unique.
Yes.
Not just a piece unique, but it's really unique. You
Yes.
know.
Yes. Yes.
So that's kind of why I love that piece.
How'd you get your hands on a platinum swatch?
There was a site which is sadly gone now that specialized in new old stock swatch called Squiggly.
Okay.
It was based in the Netherlands, and they had everything. It was delightful, and it was not only did they have everything, but they had everything still on the site. So even if they didn't have any available,
You could still
you could
see.
research. So it had you could look it up by year.
Yeah. You could use it like an archive.
Yeah. I did use it like an archive. And one night, and I will tell you this, I saw it. Josh Shanks is going to come up a lot apparently. Josh was posted one in his Instagram story, and it was someone else's watch, but he posted it in his Instagram story. And I was at dinner, and I was like, kind of want one of those. Looked on Squiggly, they had one, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna wait until I get home from dinner and see if I still want this and if it's still
After
there.
a couple drinks.
After a couple drinks. I
Yeah.
I gotta get a little liquid courage.
Yeah.
And I got home and I went on there and it was still there and it was like below what its original retail price had been, which was somehow impossible, I thought, because platinum has
Yeah.
gone up in value since
Yeah.
1993. So, And so I bought it.
Wow.
And it came with the whole thing. It's like all the case that it came in, the box it came in is like this big giant thing. It comes with extra straps that weighs a ton. So it looks like a coffee table book.
There was an article in your watch too, right? Wasn't there?
Yeah. Logan did something about it on Hodinkee.
Yes.
A while back. He borrowed mine for the shoot. Yeah.
I remember that.
This is actually really, really interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, going back to design language, there's a lot happening.
There's a lot.
But it's really cool. There's like some Art Deco vibes. There's like, I love how on the date indicator, the numbers start kind of spread out and then just like get mashed up. As like he goes to the top. That's kind of funky. You made a comment earlier about your thoughts with regard to gendering watches.
Oh.
I know this is something that is actually being talked about quite a bit in terms of how people view timepieces. We just sat down last week with a friend of ours, Elias, who collects small watches. Some people would describe him as a collector of ladies' watches. There is a trend now where it seems like more women are starting to collect bigger watches and men are starting to go smaller again. What do you think about all of this conversation? What's your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. One is that I think that watches are inherently genderless objects.
Yep.
Those don't have a gender. They're just they're just literally mechanical pieces of art in some cases, but they're they just tell time. They're tools. So I think it's a little archaic to have watches that are gendered in that way. Like I totally understand the size and so like people wanting certain size of watch or people wanting jewelry on their watch or whatever, but I don't think that has anything to do with gender.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at somebody that's wearing a blinged out watch and they like there's a lot of dudes that do that.
Yeah.
So I just don't see the point kind of in gendering them at all. I definitely again understand jewelry watches, but why are they called ladies' watches? Why are they not just jewelry watches? Yeah. So I just don't see the point. Yeah. In this day and age. And I will say this too: lots of people shop outside of their assigned gender category. So if you look at statistics, right? Gen Z has like $323 billion in buying power. These are old numbers. It's like end of 2019. 56% of them, and again, this is 2019 numbers, so this is probably larger. 56% of them shop outside of their assigned gender category, whether that's unisex clothing or shoes, any of that stuff. Yeah. So think about that buying power. That's $181 billion in total buying power. Huge. Yeah. It's huge. And that number has certainly grown since 2019 with a lot of conversations about gender and all of that stuff. People are like, I like those pants. I'm just going to buy those pants. Yeah. And so why would it be any different with with watches? So I think if we're going to talk to the next generation of watch collectors, and you're going to capture their attention and you want them to want to watch, you cannot market to them in the way that you market to their grandparents.
That word to market because of what it suggests and what it seems to me is, and I think Redbar is proof of this. What we've been seeing happen in, watch community at large is proof of this. But like, the people get it, collectors get it.
Collectors get it.
It's the industry that is a little bit late to catch up. And we were talking about, when Patek dropped the novelties, the 7968,
the Aquanaut,
and it was just like, and they were like, all right, ladies Patek, ladies Aquanaut, and it's like, yo, I would totally.
It's a big ass watch. What do you mean? It's bigger. It's bigger than a 5167.
But then also there's a gentleman who's a friend of yours who got that new Nautilus.
Maxime.
Yes,
Maxime copped the rose gold Nautilus with the
7118.
Yeah, and it has the gem set bezel, and he wears a 36mm watch all the time. And when he got that, he was stupid hype. I sized it for him, and he was like, "I'm wearing this every single day."
It's amazing.
But that's the thing. It's like I just see there's, to me, it's a marketing problem.
Yeah.
Right. because there's a whole bunch of arguments that I have heard people in the watch industry make to me about, a watch is really the only jewelry that a man can wear outside of his wedding ring, but women have all these other ways to express themselves and blah blah blah. I think that's all a bunch of bullshit. So like, we should not be marketing in ways that the market research said that people wanted to be marketed to in the 80s or the 70s. We should be marketing to them in the way that, like, if the industry is going to look at it this way, right? Yeah. Should be marketing to people the way that they like to buy in general. Like, do the look at the research for consumer spending in general and the way that people want to buy shit. People don't care what label you put on it. They just want to buy what they like. So why are we labeling it in this way that like appeals to our grandparents? Yeah. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And you're right. The collectors get it. The community is out there. Like, there's women wearing all kinds of, like, there's everybody that's not in the ads are wearing all kinds of shit. Yep. And so like I think the industry just needs to, catch up with that, and catch up with the reality of the situation, in that the customer base that they have is going to change and is changing and has changed and is continuing to evolve. And if you want to capture the people that are coming up, you have to talk to them.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like,
representation matters. And as we know, we all know this, like, but you can't just and getting back into the gender thing, you can't just be like, you just can't ignore a whole ass gender.
Yeah, no.
Like, just be like, crazy. Just be like, you just can't just be like, okay, we're just not going to talk about it.
It's funny you say that, because the marketing really does make people think that way. It's like, this is only for one type of person. Yeah. Because I remember last summer, I was having a conversation with a woman who like fell in love with a GMT, with a Rolex GMT. And she was like, why don't they make this smaller for women? I was like, why would they? And she was like, so women can wear it. And I'm like, but you can wear it. You're wearing it. Yeah. You are wearing it. And you like this one. She was like, yeah. And I'm like, so get that one. She's like, but I want it smaller. And I'm like, you probably wouldn't even like it if it was smaller. If you like the one you're wearing.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, every watch in my collection, every single one except for one, which is from 1940, was marketed to men. Like, these, I mean, like, actually, Fears deliberately, the other watch we haven't talked about that's over there on the watch roll.
Good time to talk about
Fears, it. They deliberately don't market to genders at all.
Yeah, they don't.
Nick and I have had a conversation about this. Like, it's deliberate on their part. He just makes watches. He does not do gender-based marketing at all. Most of these, though, were like sold as men's watches. This one was too. This is a big old watch. This is not a small watch, the one I have on. Yeah. I don't buy watches based on how they're marketed to me. I buy them based on what I like.
You like it. It's as simple as that.
Just all, that's literally
and
the
it feels like, a lot of these brands are, because they're still kind of stuck in their ways, they're missing out on opportunities, in the sense of, certain brands have insane demand right now, and they're just hard to get as is. And so you would think, in addition to these brands being, highly sought after, difficult to get, that at some point they've got to realize it's going to wane, right? Because you have a whole new demographic coming in. What are you doing to prepare the next group that's coming in terms of collectors? Because if they already don't have access to your product, right, you're not talking to them, they're going to find something else to buy.
Exactly. And that's also the thing that comes into play when you get something fire. Right.
It's the same K shape as Rashawn's Cellino.
It is. Yeah. That cushion case.
Method to the madness.
It is. It's a beautiful K shape. But like, that's the thing, is like, people come in. So like, the kind of traditional cliche, right? Some dude turns 30 or 40 or whatever, and they get themselves a sub. Yeah. That's the cliche. That's a New York cliche.
His face tells it all.
It's a New York cliche. You'd be like, I'm sitting in some like Midtown steakhouse bar, and you're like,
you heard that first word, Midtown?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying. But like, you look over and you're like, oh, you got promoted. Yes, right? Yes, but like, there was a cliche of that, right? And now those dudes can't do that. So the people that are coming into the market that are like, they get their first good job, or they get their promotion, or they're getting their wedding watch, or whatever they're doing, the like milestone watch. and they come in and they're like, I want to walk into a Rolex. It says Rolex right there.
Sure.
I'll walk in there. I'm gonna be like, I got a bucket of cash with me.
Yeah.
But it's not safe in New York. But still,
Yeah.
I got a backpack full of cash. And they walk in and they're like, a backpack full of cash. I just turned 40. I'm having a midlife crisis. I need a Rolex or whatever their deal is.
Yes.
And they're like, nah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So this is not only are we seeing the fact that you're not talking to the younger generation, the women, you're really kind of not talking to anyone except for like old white guys in the marketing. You're also alienating people who are the traditional buyer, like the people who are like coming up the corporate ladder or whatever they're doing.
Oh yeah.
So they can't get access to it. So it's either going to drive them to be like, well, I'm going to buy a sports car instead, or they're going to go outside of those traditional brands and they're going to buy something else. Yes. They're going to buy something that they can get their hands on.
Absolutely.
Very similar to a jeweler that we know. I think they've been very, with the right leadership, have been able to kind of create that culture that you're talking about. And I know myself, when I'm consulting, these are the kind of things that I'm talking to new watch collectors about. It's like, hey, do you want to go somewhere where you can walk into a boutique and you're not talking to like some old fartsy dude about watches. You're actually talking to someone that's actually very knowledgeable, but also shares the same passion and has outside interests and cares about things just as much as you do outside of just giving your credit card.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny to see that, like, we get it, but then there's so many people that don't. We're like just fighting up this hill to be heard.
And I to your point, and what you're saying, I think that there's a day of reckoning that's coming that they haven't even seen yet.
I
They
think that's right.
They saw it with the secondary market, bottoming out as is done. But what happens, if you're buying these brands and you love them, that's great. They're fantastic brands.
Yes.
Right. But if you're buying it with the intent of saying, like, I'm investing and I'm stashing, what happens when the next generation comes up and like, well, I don't want what you have?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what happened during the quartz crisis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happens when all of these people who are, kids now, they get their promotions, when they start saying, I want a timepiece, I want to start collecting, and you haven't been talking to them for the last 20 or 30 years.
Well, this is what I think you touched on earlier, where there was missed opportunity, but I think there's a big opportunity for the watch industry. Right?
Exactly.
So just like, so remember when let's talk about the quartz crisis and the language around that. The watch industry still talks about the quartz crisis like it was like their own personal,
and they did it to themselves.
Right. But like, so, the quartz crisis, it's like, but the Apple Watch, when the Apple Watch came out, the whole industry was like, is this the next quartz crisis? Like they all were like shaking in their boots a little bit. And no, you know what that was? And I said that I've been saying this for years. It was always an opportunity to put something on people's wrists because most of the people that were early adopters of smartwatches were people that didn't wear watches. They didn't wear real watches. They were using their phones or their computers to like all the tech people. All my friends, like I worked in IT for 25 years. All my friends that were working in tech didn't have the second that they were able to tell time on something else, they stopped wearing watches. So and especially when the smartphones happened. When smart watches came out, they were like, oh, I'm going to put something on my wrist. But they hadn't had anything on their wrist for a decade. Yep. And then they started going, maybe I should get a real watch. Yeah. So this was an opportunity, and it always has been an opportunity. This is the opportunity that the watch industry is faced with right now. How do you engage the people that are coming up, the future milestone guys, the future people that are coming in that want to get into watch collecting? It's an opportunity. So the brands, and I think what we're going to see, as usual, is independent brands and smaller brands are going to be the ones that do it. They're going to be the ones that do it.
The indies are going to eat 100%. Off everybody be the forever.
Next big players. I already see it.
Yeah, you already can see it because there's people that they just can't get their hands on some of the mainstream brands, and they're just like, okay, cool, I'm just going to buy one of these because they're right there. And I think that's the thing is the brands who come out strong and take advantage of the fact that they are independent and they can make those decisions and they can choose to talk to the people that aren't being spoken to by the mainstream brands are going to be the ones that are going to take the market share.
They are.
I was going to say, sorry, Perry. No, Perry usually runs the show. He leads the show, but I'm going to jump the gun. If
Please, go ahead.
I think this is the perfect segue.
That's turning red.
No, this is the perfect segue because very similar to when Perry speaks, he's able to kind of like take the air out of the room, right? And when I was listening to you, the AC's going, I can't even hear the AC. I'm just listening to you, right? And one thing that stuck with me.
You sounded crazy saying the AC is on right now. It's like 30 degrees outside.
But I mean, what stuck with me the most is like, you know, just being heard and, you know, kind of champion the idea of, you know, creating your own, which kind of leads us to, you know, your creation that's coming out very soon.
I love how you
there you go. Wow.
Yo, that was such a boss move.
I'm sorry.
He knew you were going to go for that.
I was actually about to go right there.
That was
we see we're there.
You just took the ball right out of my hands, but it's all good.
He knew you were going to go for that. He's LeBron. He LeBron'd you.
That was smooth as fuck.
That was smooth. Go ahead. Right. But to his point,
Yeah. So, yes, we are launching our Redbar is launching our latest collaboration February 2nd with Bamford.
There we go.
So this all came about. I'm going to tell you about the watch in a second, but I want to tell you about how it came about because, again, I mean this in the most loving way possible. George is a little bit of a mad scientist.
Okay.
Like, I mean this in a really positive way.
Yes.
So I was over... I stopped in London on my way to Watches and Wonders last year, and part of that was to just hang out in London, but also to meet with George because he had been one of the brands that created a piece unique for the Watch Femme for Ukraine auction that we created last year to help support World Central Kitchen. So which we raised $250,000 in 3 weeks, which I think is not bad. And had 9 piece uniques.
Wow.
It's nuts. So I went into the workshop and they were showing me the watch as they were assembling it. It was really cool to see. I had some pins made that were like that were the logo for the auction. So I gave them to the watchmakers who are all impossibly young. Everybody who works for George Bamford is like 20 something. I don't know. But anyway, I was in the workshop and then we went down to his sort of, I guess it's a kind of showroom meeting room, and it's got every one of Bamford collabs that he's ever done and like photographs of them. It's a really cool space. And we were standing around and we were talking about the state of the watch industry and just having a great chat. And I was like, George, why haven't we done a watch together? And he's like, yeah, we should do one. So he's like, let's start talking about it right now.
Okay.
So he's showing me all their current cases and their current options, and he's like, "These are the case options." And I was like, "Carbon fiber." Well, I'm not a monster.
Yeah.
No, you know, I was like, "Yeah, no, carbon fiber, obviously. Like, look at how I dress." So we were like carbon fiber, and he's like, "Okay, well, we have these options and this for these kinds of movements." And I was like, "Well, chronograph, because we've never done a chronograph." All our previous collaborations, we did do a perpetual calendar with Frederic Constant, but we've never done a chrono. So I was like, let's do that. And then I was like obsessed with mystery dials, which is also part of, I think, why you asked me to bring the mystery dial. I was like, can we do the subdials as a mystery dial? And he was like, yes. And then he goes, okay, I'll figure out how to.
Okay.
Wow.
So the resulting design is a monopusher big eye chronograph with a single register. It's a 30-minute counter that is a mystery subdial. It is the first time anyone has ever executed a mystery subdial. As far as I know, and I asked Eric Wind, and he said he had never seen it. So I feel like
that's pretty.
I feel like that's pretty.
That's the first time.
Definitive. I like showed it to him at Wind Up, and I was like, "This is the collab I've never seen a mystery subdial have you. And he's like, nope. So
Wow.
I feel like that's definitive.
Yes.
I didn't also ask John Reardon, but like,
Sure.
whatever. I didn't ask every single watch
Yeah.
expert, but so it's really cool. It's all of the ring around the subdial is like loomed as fuck, so it's great. So like it's really like the loom is great on it. Like everything is really cool. It's forged carbon case. It's the chronograph movement is based on it's a Sellita SW510. So workhorse movement.
Yeah.
I love it. Like I could not be happier with how it turned out.
I remember you showed it to me at Watch Time. I was floored.
Facts. I tried that shit on. It was good.
Yeah, it's really good. So I had the prototype in hand because George was in town like right before the Redbar Global Meetup and Watch Time and Wind Up, and so I had it that whole week.
Yeah.
And I was able to show it to a few people. I just could not be happier with how it turned out.
Yeah.
I love it. So we launched it we sent it out to our members for pre-order today.
Potentially sold out by the time you see this
It
episode.
will probably be sold out. My assumption is it's going to be sold out by the time the episode airs.
Probably tonight.
But it's like everybody I showed it to was like blown away.
It's tight.
I love it so much, and I couldn't be happier. And the process with George, and that initial meeting was right before Watches and Wonders. That's less than a year to market, which is nuts.
That's crazy
for a watch collaboration. Like I've never had one come to market that fast. I've never heard of one coming to market that fast. Which is also what you get. You working, like this is the power of independent brands and people who have
you can just press the button and go.
Yeah, and then they have the ability to make those decisions, and he doesn't have to go through like 7 chains of like corporation.
He's also probably like
approvals.
one of the most like perfect partners to do something like this with because he's done it so many times.
Yeah,
he has like.
He's got a line.
You just have to like plug and play, and it's just like wherever you want to go. Like I'll support you, and let's just do it.
Yeah. That's pretty much how it's been.
Yeah.
Like he's just, we went through a couple of iterations of the design, gave him some feedback, but like it was just pretty quick, and really the only constraint he was aiming to do it late last year, but supply chain.
Yeah, sure.
Supply chain disruptions they're getting better, but they're still a thing. So we would have.
And how many pieces?
100 pieces. 100 pieces. So like we've done 2 editions that were 100 pieces each with previous collaborations, and those ones sold out very quickly. So
that's awesome.
I don't have any doubt that this one will sell
this
out.
is gonna be good.
And it's just cool as hell. So we're also doing a lot. The watch is being announced on the 2nd of February. We're doing a launch event in London to celebrate it as well, which is going to be really cool because it's not just about Bamford. It's more of a Redbar meetup with like some British brands. So it's like there's a few other participating brands as well. Yeah. It's just going to be like a Redbar London party.
We're there.
Yeah, let's fly out.
When did the pre-order? You sent it out to Redbar members.
Yep.
When did the watches deliver?
February.
Oh wow,
he's assembling them right now.
Incredible.
He sent me pictures this morning. George sent me pictures this morning. He's like they're already being assembled.
So they'll have the watch within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they'll have the watch sometime in February. They will have. They're gonna have like a few like actually obviously present at the launch event. So there will be at least some of them will start being delivered pretty early.
That's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it.
You also gave me inspiration for the title of this episode. Loomed as fuck.
Loomed as fuck.
It's pretty good.
I like it. I mean,
love that.
Who doesn't love a little luminescence on your watch?
Of course.
Like it's good.
It is good. This has been a real treat. Yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm really glad we can make it happen. I'm sorry it has taken us so long to figure out a schedule that works, but this is
we've been talking about this for like 9 months.
Yes. So I mean, the timing couldn't be any more perfect.
Yeah.
With what you have going on and everything that, the growth of Redbar that we've seen and how you've influenced many in the watch community and created a safe space for people to commune and gather and just do what they do best. Just enjoy each other's company and timepieces. So, kudos to you.
Thank you.
For all of you listening and watching, you know where to find us. This wraps up this week's episode. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok for the children, and maybe in the metaverse. I don't know.
Oh my God.
He took my line. I love it. Yes.
I had to take it. See you next week, everyone. Peace.
Yes. Peace.